Real quick, before we jump into the show, we created the Collecting Keys podcast to be a real estate investing podcast that is created by real estate operators for real estate operators. And we want operators everywhere to know what it really takes these days to be successful in this business, rather than all the fluff that all the other content creators and podcasters out there make. And so one of the challenges with this is that it's challenging to grow because most operators are too busy out there working, right? And they aren't always learning or actively seeking new learning material. And so if you could please share this show with any fellow operators you can text it to them, you can post it on your socials, you can leave us a good review that you then share somewhere. That would be amazing. But really, whatever, it really helps us continue to get excited to create content. And it will also help you because everyone that you expose us to will get better as a real estate operator and close more deals. So if you could do that for us, it would really mean a ton. And otherwise, we appreciate you guys. And let's get into this episode. The industry is so different now from like 4 years ago. It's not just about like calling people and having a silver tongue and closing deals anymore.
I haven't told you my new Instagram algorithm. Have I?
What?
It's people eating. Have you seen this? Have you seen this trend on Instagram or social media?
No.
Oh, it's a great one.
Our algorithms aren't as screwed as yours is, bro.
People eating?
I'm going to start sending it to you. Yeah.
What is it like? People like with like no limbs, like eating with nubs? Like what the fuck?
No, here's what caught my eye. I'm scrolling and I see this like Jacob's Java cup, which is a local coffee shop here. And then all of a sudden this chick gets on and she's like, what I eat in a day is a fatty. And then she drinks out of the coffee and she's like, this one's gross. So she's like, went and got another one. And it was another local. So I was like, oh, I was sitting next to my wife. I was like, check this out. This girl's like from Spokane. And it was just her wolfing down food all day.
No way. It's from Spokane.
I don't know. That's why it caught my eye. And then from that point on, because I looked at it, I watched the video. Now it's like, you like these, which I don't mind it. It's kind of funny. And so then I just got a few of those.
But anyways, guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Collecting Keys Real Estate Investing Podcast. This is the show by real estate operators for real estate operators so you can make your business better in this ever-changing market. If you're first time here, I am Mike DeHaan here with my co-host Dan Austin and welcome back after a long time to Dylan Cook.
Welcome back.
Feels good to be back in the booth.
Been out for 4 weeks. And on this show, we like to dive into things that are working for our business in the current times, and then also just talk about the macroeconomic state of real estate, everything as well, while Dan's fucking sending an email while we're to start recording. So we're here clickety clacking. This is going to be a joke of an episode, I can tell already. So Dylan, welcome back. Glad to have you here. You had family emergency. Is your hairless cat okay? That's the real question.
Yeah, by the way, no one really DM'd me, so thanks for that, Dan.
Well, our listeners are not engaged, so shame on you, whoever's listening to this that didn't DM Dylan.
Yeah.
How did you know about it then?
For the audience, I listened to their own episodes, but for the audience,
for you.
I did FaceTime them from the vet hospital. Not a hairless cat, but for our dogs. So.
Yeah. You did like you were going to like record, and then all of a sudden the vet walked in. You're like, oh, I got to go. My dad's here.
Sort of felt like.
I mean, as the last 4 weeks have kind of progressed, I'll just, talk about my business real quick if you guys don't mind.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Honestly, January and February are going to be penciled to be like one of my top 2 months ever.
Nice.
Wow.
So still on pace for, the $1 million year, hopefully. And a lot of these were 2 different sellers at 3 properties each that I'm working like package deals on. So that's 6 deals out of the 11 that are coming from 2 different people.
Wow.
And you found your name for your book, your like small entrepreneur book, and you want to fucking have a jerk off whatever group like they do, the $1 million year. That's a great like book title.
Yeah.
On, like, Barnes and Noble.
You're right. I'll write that down.
I was thinking he should post on social media how he's looking to buy portfolios of properties.
Ooh, there you go.
There you go. That's a good idea. Or just like that be the list that you target. This is multiple property people.
Yeah.
That's your specialty. It's your niche.
Yeah. For your $1 million year, bro. There you go.
One thing that we talked about in our scale community though was I was trying to reverse wholesale a deal, right? And I got the lead, came in, talked to the seller. I didn't have it under contract yet, but I had a buyer in mind. So I took the buyer with me. I was like, hey, this is preliminary, what we talked about. If things check out, are you good here? And did the walkthrough. Everything went well. Made the offer to the seller. And he verbally accepted, but never signed it on the dotted line and started like ghosting me, which happens in this business.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks go by, I finally get him back on the phone. And I learned that he's under contract with the buyer that I brought to that house.
Nice.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so I immediately called my buyer and I was like, bro, like, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
And basically like threatened to ruin his reputation as a buyer in our market. And long story short is I was going to make $15K an assignment. He's still going to pay me the $15K. And now we're all good now. But it just goes to show, I guess, I had trusted this guy up until this point. And I've sold him deals before. So
I would have increased the price, man. I would have held him hostage a little bit.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
What an asshole. Actually, I would have collected the money and then blasted him.
That's what I would still do if I were you don't do business with him again.
What a dirtbag, dude. Is he really a dirtbag? Well, give us more context because you make it seem like it's all okay. I would not be happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've sold the guy houses before.
And I feel like this used to happen a lot more. And nowadays, you don't see this happening very often because I think it's more professional and people are less unethical. So to see it, it's weird.
I think he was desperate to do a deal. And I think he thought the numbers were tight or something like that, which they kind of were. I mean, I'll give him that, but it doesn't give you the excuse to do that. Like you negotiate. And they tried to negotiate after the fact then. He was like, can we do it for $7,500? I was like, fuck no.
No, dude. No, you loser.
So, I don't know. That's just a lesson to people out there is like, just be careful when you're trying to reverse wholesale and to even people that you probably already know.
Well, I'm a firm believer. I think it's Maya Angelou quote. It's once people show you who they really are to make them show you a second time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, this is something that is such a shockingly rare thing. I would say in like the new entrepreneur and like small business space is they keep going back to people that have ripped them off.
Yeah.
And Dan and I see this all the time because Dan and I, obviously we have the show. We're pretty ruthless. I'll call out people. I don't give a shit. And we have so many people that are in our circle. They're like, yeah, they kind of like stole money from me last time. But this, they didn't mean it.
They were sorry. They said sorry.
Yeah. Like our current business partners, they have like this huge falling out with their previous business partners. And they're still like homies. They like hang out. They like talk to each other.
Yeah.
I'm like, I would never talk to that person again.
It's like cheating on your wife or like your wife cheating on you and then going back to her. This doesn't make sense.
Right. And the only reason you're sorry is because you got caught, right? That's what it always comes, like you want resolution because you got caught, dude. That's what it comes down to. You're still an unethical person.
Bro, it's like your wife cheating on you and then you go in and playing golf with the dude that fucked your wife.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
ridiculous.
That's fucked up.
Yeah.
Like,
there's
honestly.
a name for that, I think, called cuckolding.
You would know that.
Yeah, that's an Army Ranger thing, Dan. You know all about that. That's probably also part of your Instagram algorithm.
Definitely.
But anyways, I'm glad you're able to get a resolution on that though, Dylan. I'm glad you're having a good couple months to get kicked off. What's your deal flow? Like how many deals you have signed around? Or are you going to be closed at the end of the month?
As long as the ones are 2 that close next week, so that'll be 11 through the first 2 months.
Awesome. That's great.
Nice.
5 and then 6.
Sweet,
And then there's 4 others in escrow that I'm still either trying to find a buyer for or working through a title issue on one of the other ones.
That is the name of the game right now. We have so many just like messy freaking deals with title.
Gross title issues.
Yeah.
Title and sellers.
Yeah. Yeah. Dan's a professional shit solver right now.
And honestly, I think I have like 7 or 8 offers out too that for whatever reason, man, I just can't get these people back on the phone to actually sign the dotted line, which is super frustrating.
As soon as you get like, if you're actually able to actually find an acquisitions person, I know you've been trying this forever and you failed a bunch of times because apparently no one in Cincinnati wants to work. You're going to just crush it, dude. Like, yeah, I feel like you always have these kind of pending deals that are probably closable, but you're also just a business owner that's balancing everything else.
You're doing 100 different things.
So 2 things with that. I'm re-interviewing people. I'm down to the final 2 candidates. So I'm make a decision by the end of this week.
I'm excited for you to invite them to our scale sales training and them not show up again.
No, they'll show up this time.
That's part of their interview. Is that part of their interview? Like, see if they show up on time?
Yeah.
Actually, I should. That's a good idea.
You should. I'll like haze the shit out of them when they get on there. It must be a total dick.
So actually, no, this is good to talk about because the 2 candidates, one is local, has tried basically wholesaling on himself, but realized it's hard, has done a couple deals, but basically likes the steady income. He's older, married.
Yeah.
Because I'm offering $2K flat plus the commission.
Yep.
The other one is a young 20-year-old that lives in Texas, but he's like a mutual friend of a friend, but he seems hungrier. But I almost feel guilty where if I bring him out here and it doesn't work, he just moved across the country, right? The other guy's probably the safer bet.
Oh, you're going to have him move.
Yeah, no, he said, because I want my person to be boots on the ground too.
Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm.
And he said he'd be willing to do that. So pitching it back to you guys, you got the guy that's probably hungrier but doesn't know shit about real estate, young guy, or the safer guy who knows sits at real estate, knows the game, but kind of a toss up there.
What's your current lead backflow? How many leads do you have in the system? If you look at your warm leads and shit, is it in the thousands?
Low thousands. Yeah.
Low thousands?
Yeah,
cool.
lots.
Bring in both of them.
Oh, man.
That's going to be my answer. I was like, what if you hired both of them and then keep the best one?
And what I would do instead of having that kid move across the country, seriously, pay for him to come out and stay for a month. Bring both these guys on. If he doesn't like it, he can go back to Texas.
Go back home.
Right? Then you're not making him make this big commitment. It'll cost you realistically, $3,000 to put him into an Airbnb or some shit. Get him in your system. He'll work out. You'll know it. You'll know in the first 3 or 4 weeks. As someone that has hired and fired a lot of people, you will know very quickly if they're going to be good or not. And as soon as you have a little pit in your stomach of I don't know if they're that good, they're probably not, just shit can them. And then you can see which one of them performs well. And what I would recommend is you bring them in, you have them start going through your old leads because that will actually show their hunger.
Yeah.
Right? If they're going to have to actually work for them. And if either of them kind of goes, I don't really want to do this, you'll know that in the first 2 days.
Right.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're probably right. That kind of hurt to say, but you're probably right.
That's what I would do.
Just investment in your business. I mean, we've done that before where we're like, man, we got 2 really good candidates. We can't pick between the 2. Fuck it. Just hire both of them. Because in my opinion, that's cheaper than hiring the wrong one.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah. When you phrase it like that too.
When you only bring in one, you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt because you just invested your own time. You have a sunk cost bias in that versus if you have options, right? It's a lot easier to pivot. And I will also say to you that if you have 2 people that come in and they know that they are competing against each other, one of them will typically wash themselves out because they'll be like, this is not for me. We have had that happen several times.
Totally. And realistically, if you hire one of these people in 6 months, they're not going to be there anyways.
Exactly.
So it's don't feel bad that you have to maybe let one go in 6 months because the other one is just so much better. That's going to end up happening anyways, probably. So at least if you have 2, now you're prepared to let somebody go in 6 months and you still have the rock star. Or, worst case scenario, they both don't work out.
Yeah. And the way I try to view a lot of these deals is what is the worst case scenario. And I waste some time and a little bit of money.
Yeah.
Exactly. But the upside is significantly more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's asymmetric.
Yeah. Best case scenario is they both kick ass. And now you have 2 acquisition managers, or you just keep marketing.
And now I need to spend a fuck ton of money on marketing.
Yeah.
Totally. Right. But I mean, if they're getting you a 5-7 extra on your ad spend, who cares?
No, you're not wrong.
Or maybe one of them, actually ends up being a pretty good dispo person and you transition to that. I mean, there's so many options, right? It's you just don't know what you don't know at that point.
Circling back just a little bit, the 11 deals that we've have slated for the first 2 months. A lot of that too is because I think I have the assistant. You just mentioned that I'm doing all these things. She's taken a lot off my plate.
Yeah.
From transaction coordination, property management, utility, anything like that. So
nice.
I've been more times on the phone talking with sellers, which I think contributes to that.
So much more helpful. Did you have a bunch of SOPs that you gave her, or have you just taught her as she's gone?
Ton of Loom videos, honestly.
Yeah.
To be honest, not a lot's in writing anywhere, but a lot of Loom videos that shows, what the processes are and that kind of stuff.
Nice. That's helpful.
Cool. Growing it pretty well. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think that if you legitimately think they're both good candidates, give them both a shot instead of acting the wrong one. That was actually an Alex Hormozy bit talking about flying them out there and putting them in an Airbnb. He talks about how they do that with any employee that they're thinking about making them relocate because they're it's not fair to them to make them relocate if they're not going to work out. And realistically, the trade-off for you on downside versus upside of that is going to be massive. Because also too, you could move to Cincinnati and be like, I'd rather stay in Texas. I hate this snow and this weather.
Yeah.
Right. And that's important because they have 16 hours a day where they're not working for you that they need to enjoy.
Yeah, cool. I mean, here we go. Even though I missed 4 weeks, this was well worth it.
There you go.
Yeah, for a free mentorship with Dylan on the Collecting Keys podcast.
But I mean, moving increased marketing costs, I know you guys have had some, frustrations with your mailing.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit last week. And I talked about how currently my parents who live in Bozeman, Montana, they don't even have regular mail carriers there right now. So if they want to receive mail, they have to go to the post office. That's still going on. And I guess now that they found some part-time work, so they'll get mail delivered like maybe once a week or like sometimes, like you just never know. But if you want consistent stuff, which is important during tax time, you got to go to the post office, pick it up. And we had on our scale call yesterday, we were talking about mail results, and pretty much across the board, everyone has had issues with getting mail delivered. And, there's a few different situations with that. So I know there's the weather piece with winter, which has been causing issues throughout the Midwest and the South. Our mail houses in the Midwest, that's part of it. But there's also this whole Doge thing, right, where they're cutting all the federal workers. Dan found an article yesterday after we talked about on our skill call with them basically having extended like a bonus to federal workers at the USPS if they opted to retire and leave.
Like senior employees.
And I don't know if you guys have ever been to a post office, but they're kind of all senior employees.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what percentage of them took that, but I would imagine that insignificant. But then the interesting thing is, Dylan, you said before the show, I'm not going to put the names on a blast, but you used a different mail house, a week ago, and those have gotten delivered. So I'm trying to figure out if it's like our timing with our batch for everything has been poor, because like we are currently waiting for mail to come in that went out at like the beginning of January, right? But that also is kind of lined up with a lot of these cuts and different things. So I don't know. The big learning lesson with this is how important it is to not have such a huge like marketing risk or like a single channel risk, I guess they call it, in your business. You always have to have backup plans. Because despite our lead generation being really, really poor over the last 2 months in terms of direct mail, we have been able to get some online leads that have been doing pretty well. We've gotten some referral leads from agents and from other wholesalers, which we've been able to make some money on. We have the benefit of the fact that we have 6 years worth of leads in our system to like kind of dig through, and we've been pulling stuff out of that. So we're able to make money, but that will eventually run out. So we're kind of like facing a time crunch to figure out like what our next lead gen opportunity is going to be.
And if you don't stop that continuous marketing, it's just going to like once the old ones do hit and the ones that you just sent are hitting like simultaneously, it's like now your staff is overwhelmed with, the opportunities that come in, which is a okay problem to have, but everything kind of gets thrown off balance there for a little bit.
It does. And currently, what I said, we don't have a big team because it's basically us and our other partners that run the sales side. And that's kind of it. And we have a lead manager. If this situation happened back when we had a big team, it would have been really weird because we would have had like 15 people that were sitting around doing nothing. Versus like right now, if we get overwhelmed, I don't know, we'll probably just be dropping the ball on a few, but I would rather have that problem than being ice cold.
Yeah. And I think too, also as another note of what you should be doing in these times is like having more tools in your tool bag of how to get a deal across the finish line, like just milking what you have. So when you don't have these leads, okay, well, what are the next tier down leads that maybe weren't traditional wholesale deals, but might become a flip for you or innovation? Or can you just go back to and negotiate harder with them and not being a one trick pony, not just on the marketing side, but on the operational side? Because if you're fighting to get one deal a month and that's like you're just fighting for that every single month and all of a sudden you're not getting any fresh leads, you're not going to be doing well. You're going to be tapping out on your money and your funds because you're not going to have anything coming in. Yeah. Because you don't have anything outside of your one trick.
Yeah. I think even when I was at the beginning of doing this and I needed to generate revenue, I mean, a couple of things is if you have any software, CRM, like list stack it, go to the ones that are at the top of the list and just fucking cold call people, right? Just do that. That's for one. And then if there's ones that are close, right? Like you talk to people and you're like, hey, I need to get this a little lower. I'm a huge fan of doing like basically like reverse wholesaling, but like finding the cash buyers around there that bought in the last 2 years in a 0.5 mile radius. And I just sold a deal the other day that they own on the same street and they know they're overpaying, but they don't care because they like the street and they want to own another place right there, right? And so I'm not going to find another buyer that's traditional in this sense. So now you're mix and matching and finding opportunities when they're not there.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and that is a 90% of the business right now is that opportunity recognition, right? And understanding real estate well enough to do that. If you can give me about 36 seconds, I just want to share our Scale community with you. So Scale stands for Scaling Cash Flow, Assets, Leverage, and Equity. And it is our exclusive community for real estate operators looking to take this game seriously. In the community, you get to hang out with myself, Dan, Dylan, and other operators around the country who are all working to be the best in their market. We recently did a survey, and every single member said that the community had directly contributed to major growth they experienced in the last 12 months. On top of that, you get all of our processes around marketing, sales, building a CRM, and you even get preferred relationships with Lowe's and different financing/lenders so that you can get your deals 100% paid for without a headache. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, go to collectingkeys.com/scale. Let's see if you're a good fit. I actually had a call yesterday with an old friend of ours who's been in the industry for longer than Dan and I have. He's kind of one of like our first mentors. And he hit me up and he's like, man, I'm really struggling right now. And so I got on a call with him, just quick Zoom. And we're just talking about everything that he was working on. He's like, yeah, he's like, I don't understand. He's like, I got tied up in like some of these larger deals. He's doing multifamilies. He was doing these different things. And he's trying to get back into flipping houses. He's like, I'm doing all the same stuff. I'm just not, I feel stupid. I just can't figure it out. And I was like, bro, the industry is so different now from like 4 years ago. And I was like, it's not just about like calling people and having a silver tongue and closing deals anymore, right? Like all the different kinds of lead generation have been so commoditized. Any Joe Schmo can go, even if you want to send direct mail, you can just go pay fucking 200% per letter for REI print mail or whatever it's called. And they'll do all the data and shit for you and they'll send it. You're paying out the ass for that. But if you're somebody who's only trying to do 5 deals a year, right, you can do that now. You know, so now everyone is able to do that. If you want to go and hire a cold calling or a marketing company, you can go and you can find a whole army of VAs that have experience cold calling for other wholesale companies that no longer exist. You can hire a cold calling company. You can do PPL companies and literally just give them your credit card and they'll sell you leads that they pretend like are exclusively for you for $300 a person, even though they're selling them to fucking everybody.
I've had that.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But like every kind of lead generation now is so easy to just like get. But the only thing that I would say is really important to stand out, and this is what I said to him, is having 2 things. And it's a brand where people can actually like see you and see that you're legit and know that you're not a crook. So we've really made a point of trying to build out a professional presence for that reason. And then also having like craftiness, right? And enough knowledge around real estate to recognize opportunities that are mutually beneficial. And a lot of times right now, that isn't always wholesale, right? That isn't always getting a discounted deal. It's doing innovation. It is, you know, working with the seller to wholesale with them. We've done a lot of these recently where we're like, I understand you want that money. We can't get you that price. If we can get you that price, are you willing to pay us like basically like a brokerage fee almost? But it's like almost like an off the books thing. We've had several of those recently that we've done where they fully know that we are working to find investor buyers, even though it's not us. And that's more beneficial than like, yeah, I'm going to give you a contract and then just like try to find someone. Just like being super transparent and really approaching things from a collaborative manner with the seller is so, so important right now.
100%.
I don't think a lot of OG people understand that.
And the one thing you alluded to is like the brand adjacent stuff. So like what I mean is like if you send them a direct mail piece and they Google you and you do have the website, you do have the BBB rating, like that increases your response rate in your direct mail. That increases your likelihood of doing those deals. The biggest wholesaler in this market does TV ads and PPC. That's it. And they'll do over $3 million top line. Right?
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty good.
So they get so many leads just from those 2 things that they
Just
don't really
branding.
need to do anything else.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The biggest wholesaler in your market only has 3 million top line.
That I know of, yes.
How big is Cincinnati? How big's the city?
Median price point's probably pretty
Median
low.
price point's like 250 to 300.
Okay, so higher than I thought.
Yeah, but like, I mean, that's like Dallas though. I mean, and Billy and Tara down there do like 8 million a year.
I think we're much smaller than DFW, and they market to more than that.
That's my point though.
Yeah.
So how big is Cincinnati? How many people?
I mean, honestly, I don't know if I could Google it.
It's like, is it like 1 million people or is it less?
Well, I think the other thing with the argument of like how to do this and why he's failing is like sellers are different sellers today than they were. They're more educated. They're more sophisticated. If you're like wholesaling, even when we first started, but like even before that, like some of these sellers just, there's like, oh, I need a cash buyer. I get, what is this? They're like, okay, yeah, oh, that sounds way better. Now they know, they've had experiences, they've seen the advertisement from the big guys in your town. They understand the process. And so they're actually a little bit more, they understand there's competition. And so they are going into it more educated and have the ability to negotiate better. It's really what it comes down to it.
I can't remember last time I had a conversation with someone that didn't have already talked to somebody else.
it's constant, right? And not only that, but a lot of them don't even know what wholesaling is.
Totally. They're like, are you going to wholesale my house?
Yeah, dude. We literally had a seller not long ago that asked us that. I was like, are you guys wholesalers? And then he said that his son had shown him videos on TikTok and was like into that. So like they were fully aware of what we were doing.
Yeah. Yep.
Right. And you're gonna try like pretend like that's not you. Just like, yeah,
Yeah.
like we might, I don't know, like sometimes we buy places, sometimes we wholesale them. It all depends.
Yeah.
Exactly.
To answer your question, Cincinnati population is only like 311,000. Cincinnati MSA is 2.2 million.
Oh, wow. Wow, that is
Oh,
big.
it's big. Bro, you have that market prime for the taking. If your top guy's only doing $3 million a year.
You could do it, Dylan. Wire. You could do
You
it.
could do it easily.
I don't know if I want to do it, but
Good point. Valid.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes it's more money, more problems.
yeah, no, I mean, I think just going back to what you guys are saying, like the brand stuff, and I don't know, how do you guys feel about TV ads? But I feel like they get the 4 a.m. people who are sitting in their living room chair. That's when the ad runs. That's when they call, and they're probably not on anybody else's list.
So I'll say this, that I think it builds brand very strong. Like I think it's that with radio ads, billboards, all that stuff are going to people, you're in everybody's living room. So the last, I don't know, few weeks around dinner time, I've had the TV, like we have YouTube TV streaming. So it has like local channels. Turn it on and we get one of our competitors like at dinner time, like prime time ads in our market. And so to me, I mean, like, I don't know if they're playing at 4 a.m. too. They probably are, but they're getting out there and a lot of people are seeing it. And because of that, like everybody's just one person away from a cash buyer, cash seller, rather. And so like, it's just that big brand. And I think it works.
Yeah, it does.
I do. It doesn't, it's hard to directly correlate it.
Yeah.
You got to still get in like something in their hands. Maybe they're going to Google you. Maybe they're going to get a mailer. Maybe they're going to get some Google ads,
Yeah. Well, I think where people tend to get a little, I'll say hesitant with those is it's hard to directly know if that brand marketing is, like you're saying, is directly leading to leads, right? There's almost like two kinds of marketing that you have to track. And like that brand marketing is almost more like an overhead item. Like it's going to be very hard to know how many people chose to call you because of their radio ads or TV ads. So they might not even know, right? They could have like gotten a letter from you. And the reason it stood out to them is because they've been hearing you on the radio or they've seen you on TV several times, but they chose to call you from your tracking number on the letter.
Yeah, right. So that shows up in your direct mail KPIs, not anything else. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it's really hard to track it that way. And I think that's why, like, if you're starting and you have like a small budget, that kind of marketing probably isn't like the media marketing probably shouldn't be your focus. Like it's hard to know exactly who you're getting in front of and to track its success.
Yep.
But if you're in a period where you have some extra revenue that you can put aside, like we're currently running radio for this reason. And I will tell you where on the seller side, I'm not sure how beneficial it's been, but it has been productive on the buyer side.
People hear us.
We've had a lot of people that have mentioned that and people like kind of in our circle. We've only had, I think, one lead that said they specifically called us because they heard us on the radio. But if they don't tell us that, we have no idea. Right?
Yeah.
I guess you can send up like a landing page,
and not
backyardhomebuyers.com/radio, but that's extra steps that also reduces the likelihood of them even following through with contact.
Yep. Oh, 100%.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. That's all part of building like the pipeline. But I will say that when times are slow, if you are an established company, having that stuff is really important because it will make you stand out from everyone else that is also slow when you're competing for a smaller bucket of leads. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Big picture stuff, Dylan. What are you seeing like economy-wise since you're the person who kind of reads that? How are you feeling about real estate as a whole?
Yeah, so I guess two things that we'll touch on briefly is one that Zillow, downgraded their 2025 pricing predictions to plus 1.1% on a national level, and it was 1.6. So it's like a 0.5% down from what it was a month ago, right? And again, that's nationwide, so you take that with a grain of salt, but Zillow is probably the most incentivized company to say that real estate's awesome, right? Like, so them being 1.1 is kind of like, are we really there to me? The other thing, and this is going to be a little bit long-winded, and it's not a political podcast by any means, but Trump has his cabinet members, right? And they were talking about a Mar-a-Lago Accord. And for anyone who wants like historical significance, the Federal Reserve was founded in 1913. Bretton Woods in 1944, that's what put the dollar on the gold standard. Nixon shock in 1971, that's what took us off the gold standard. And the Plaza Accord in 1985, which was like devaluing the dollar relative to other currencies. He's basically looking for something that's bold and brash, something along these same lines, right? To do in his political campaign. And his theory is that, hey, the trade imbalance has been imbalanced for a long time. And I don't want American taxpayers to pay for it anymore. So what him and his cabinet members are proposing is a 0% treasury bond for 100 years and basically forcing central banks to take it in lieu of protection in like everywhere, military protection, right? For like the Naval Academy, across the seas or whatever. And why would you do that, right? Like, but in theory, it makes sense because now it lowers our debt burden by a lot, right? We don't pay interest for 100 years. Someone else is buying it. And all they get is military protection. So what does that do, right? What does that do for real estate? What does that do for markets? It helps with liquidity because now we don't have to buy our own debt. Someone else is buying it. And it'll probably weaken the dollar, which also helps with liquidity because now dollar-denominated countries look better relative to the United States. All in all, if this goes through, which I can't put a probability on that, it would probably be more of a headwind for all asset prices, including real estate.
All you Bitcoiners are fucking just jerking it right now. Yeah.
So they did mention part of that. If you want to get into like the sovereign wealth fund, the tariffs also mentioned in this. But really not a lot of people are talking about a 0%, 100-year duration treasury bond that other countries are going to have to buy.
So let me ask you this. So then you're saying that would be a headwind. Can you explain that to me from the market standpoint?
Sorry, if I said headwind, I meant tailwind. So
Tailwind.
improved liquidity, decreased dollar are both usually relatively good for assets.
Right. And one of the benefits, and I'm thinking out loud here because I know some of this, but not a lot of it. So the idea being too is he can't, like Trump or his cabinet or the government can't control the interest rates that the Federal Reserve sets, right? They can't directly, he can't tell Jerome Powell, you need to drop rates, because that's really what he wants ultimately, right? To move the money, is to get money moving, is get those rates. So this would in turn affect like the 10-year treasury notes.
So the Fed is what controls like the price and amount of money, but the fiscal side, so Congress, the Treasury, they can issue any kind of duration that they want to, right? So they're basically, they can create this out of thin air, right? The 100, like these 100-year bonds. I guess if you're saying how would this affect the 10-year, it would have more appetite, right? So like instead of buying this 100-year one, we'll buy the 10-year one, which usually they're inversely correlated. So yields would go down, prices would go up. So the more people that buy it, the yields would typically come down, right? So that is kind of their train of thought, right? How can we get more people to buy the 10-year to get yields lower, which gets mortgage rates and borrowing rates lower?
Yeah, because the Fed has dropped rates, but mortgage rates have not followed suit. And a lot of people talk about the 10-year treasury rate being the cause of that.
Just think if you're the Fed and you want to issue $100 billion of bonds, let's call them 10-year bonds, but you only have $90 billion of buyers from either foreign countries, U.S. banks, whatever it may be. Who has to buy that $10 billion difference? It is the Federal Reserve. They're literally buying their own debt. And so that means that there's not a lot of demand for those bonds, which means yields have to go up to hopefully increase demand, right? So now they're basically, how can we increase demand for the 10-year to drive those yields down? Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
So their way of increasing demand is basically saying, we're not going to protect you if you don't buy this. So it's fucking blackmail.
Yeah, I mean, kind of. It's kind of playing hardball.
It's blackmail.
It doesn't really cost us anything because we're already spending the money to protect people, right?
Yeah, I guess the game theory here is like, okay, what if you're one of these, NATO nations? You're like, well, I'm going to ask China or I'm going to ask Russia to protect me instead. And now he can just be like, okay, well, now you have a 50% tariff against all imports.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, the challenge with all these sort of things that they do, where they're like, it's going to weaken the dollar or whatever, and cause inflation and these different things, it still doesn't solve the fundamental issue that the average consumer will not be making more money, right? Like their dollar's not going to be worth anymore at that point.
Well, the question is, do they need to make more money, I guess? Why would they need to make more money in this scenario?
Why? Because if assets and everything get more expensive, all the corporations going to reduce their prices because their number in their bank account, the amount of money that they have will stay the same. They're not going to suddenly get a 13, 20% fucking raise, right? So what we will see, and what we have seen in other countries that have done shit like this, is we will see a massive increase in the poverty rate in the United States. We will see 50 to 60% of people that suddenly cannot afford anything we will see a reduction in the average US person's power, it's like spending power nationwide. And at a big level, over 100 years, is that worth it? I don't know. And none of the people that are making the decision are going to be alive, so they don't really care.
So is the argument, because I guess I'm not understanding, because I guess I was going down a different path. So your argument is, are you talking about like tariffs driving up costs, or what Dylan said is driving up costs?
Well, so basically, if the stuff that Dylan talks to leads to an increase in asset prices, leads to a reduction of the value of the dollar, which leads to inflation, they're going to have to print more money, the dollar's different things, right? Most people are going to be majorly negatively affected by that.
Yeah, I guess the way I would understand it then is that those actions would decrease inflation. And sure, you're not as an individual going to make more money, but as inflation goes down, now you're basically not going down either. Like your wage stays the same. And so now you can afford more purchasing over a period of time.
So I just want to clarify something. And this is one big pet peeve when you hear like financial pundits talk. Inflation, if it's positive, is a rate of change number. It's meaning that prices are just going up or down slower. Prices don't go down unless it's deflation, which usually happens in recessions or depressions, right? And so there might be a scenario where this has been talked about, but it's not politically favorable to say, hey, we're purposely going to cause some pain to bring prices down short term and hope for a long-term gain. Everyone just kicks the can down the road because that's what the incentives say to do, right? So to Mike's point, typically what we were talking about is good for asset holders, which is people who already own assets, who are get wealthy. The wealth divide usually does get a little bit bigger. But at some point, there's things called these fourth turnings. I don't want to get too off track, but they happen every 80 to 100 years where there's this political movement, populism increases. The last time this happened was around the 40s, post-World War II, where world trade kind of changed. So are we seeing some of this happening now, I guess is the thing that we need to ask ourselves.
Probably.
Maybe.
Yeah, especially because the entire cabinet right now is the ultra wealthy.
Yeah. And are they going to do something that hurt their own bags? Probably not.
That's true.
No, exactly. They're gonna do stuff that's gonna strengthen them, and they're all the asset holders. But the 200 million Americans that don't really hold assets or have like one asset, they're the ones who are gonna get fucked, right?
Maybe. I don't think so.
I do.
That's a doomer point of view. You're basically saying that America as it stands will end because of some of these policies. I just don't think it will.
I'm not saying it'll end. There are plenty functional countries that have a lot of fucking poor people.
Yeah.
Right? I'm saying that the quality of life in terms of like the American dream, what we have, will be majorly reduced over the next 50 years than it's been for the previous 50 years. You've seen this in South Africa is a big country. You see this a lot. You've seen this throughout European countries.
Yeah, but those aren't America, dude.
I do think there needs to be some kind of...
South Africa. Nobody's comparing America to South Africa.
South Africa is a really interesting country because there are people there that are highly educated, that are very successful in their own country, but they're spending power because they're in a very corrupt government and they've had these inflationary things that they've done there. It's not worth anything nationwide.
They don't have any deep water ports. They don't have any really major things that they can offer the world as far as production and natural resources. They're not an oil producing country.
A lot of the problems that I think we're seeing today, and problems, I mean like the populism, the wealth divide, like some of the culture stuff, doesn't come from the past 4 years, doesn't come from the last 10 years. It's decisions that have been made for decades that are just now kind of coming to the top.
Since like the 70s, for sure.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, totally.
And so I think that's important to point out. And the fact that the US is the world reserve currency and we can print our own dollars, we are in a better position than every other country by default. If you're another country and you run your currency in dollars, but you can't print dollars, by default, you're at a disadvantage, right?
Yeah.
So the whole system is kind of fucked, to be honest. So, but no one knows what it looks like on the other side of that. So I know we're going like on a little tangent here, but.
Well, we're in like, I guess it would be like uncharted territory every single year, right? Because everything's changing in a way that it's like so hard to forecast it. And I guess my point in like the whole doomer thing is like, you can look at it from a negative point of view. You can look at it from a positive point of view of like, is it really going to end what I have and what I'm doing? And if you don't have that, then you're good.
It's not, because you're already rich, dude. I'm talking about like people that don't have that.
Yeah, but I mean, but on the scale of like wealthy people, like I'm comfortable, but I'm not anywhere near what most people that I would call wealthy or rich are, right?
Yeah.
People that have $100 million, they're kind of rich these days compared to the billionaires. The people that are actually good.
The $100 million people are closer to people getting food stamps than they are to a person worth $1 billion.
This is true. Yeah.
Right? That's just math.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's tricky to say. I am generally bullish on, I don't say like the Western economy and world, just because I feel like there's been enough bullshit that's come around. And like you're talking around, Dylan, we see that cycle where the sort of like populist movements come in we had that in the 40s. The Gilded Age is like a big time in the late 1800s, right? Where there was a very small portion of the population that controlled a ton of wealth. That's when like the concept of like wage slavery and, unions and all those sort of things started because there was abuse of power in that period of time. And there will be some kind of situation that happens with that again. What that looks like, I don't know. But I do know there will be some massive changes that happen over the next 4 to 5 years. And those outcomes, I do not think they will be good for most of us.
The way I'm looking at really my investing philosophy, and I think how the audience should look at it, is increase your skill set, try to make a fuck ton of money, and put that money in hard assets, which is real estate. Obviously, there's precious metals, other things that you can invest into as well. But even high-class stocks. But the first thing is make more money first.
Make more money and invest that money.
And no one can take away your skill sets, right?
Exactly.
You're totally right. Just like people have had to flee countries. If they were educated, if they knew how to hustle, they could go to other countries and they could figure it out. That's why there's so many immigrant stories of people that have come to the US and they were like a doctor in Iran during the Arab Spring or like in Asia or whatever. And they came here and they got a job. And sure, their family had to sleep on a floor with their 8 kids for the first 20 years. But then they were able to piece something together versus everyone else that just got completely screwed.
And I guess the closing point on that would be that if I was going to be somewhere where shit was going to get crazy, it'd probably be America.
I mean, maybe. I don't know. It's not a bad place to leave, for sure.
I don't want to be in China.
Definitely want to be in China.
Or Russia.
Yeah.
Or I guess England, where you get arrested for saying mean things online. So
no, that's Germany. That's definitely a German thing, though. They've got it passed.
Yeah. So,
Dan, you'd be canceled so fast. You'd be behind bars.
I know, right?
Within minutes.
Just like unintentionally, too.
All right. Well, there you go, guys. Very split decision. But who knows?
Well, that's good.
All right, guys. Anything else to wrap up?
I feel good about it.
No, I think I'm good. Good to be back.
Welcome back, Dill Pill.
All right, everybody. Well, thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed that. Welcome back, Dylan. Glad to have you back on the show. And share this with anyone that wants to hear 3 more white dudes talk about real estate and business on the internet. So thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you want more from us, you can shoot us a follow on Instagram. I am at Mike_invest. Dan is at InvestorManDan. And Dylan is at Dylan_does_deals. Shoot us a follow and send us a DM to let us know what you think of the show.